wonderful. It's so exciting to see so many people here. My name is Crystal Collette, and I'm one of the members of the steering committee of Invisible Lowville.
And I'm Lee Vance. I'm also one of the steering committee members.
And after the Parkland, Florida, yeah. I'm a little nervous. Yeah, we all are looking at me. After the mass shooting, I think it was like 11 days ago, I think, several of us from Indivisible immediately connected, and we talked together about how, in many ways, we believe, our group came together because we believe that as a country we've forgotten how to talk to each other. And I have trouble watching the news because people can't talk to each other. And so our group is focused on sharing our beliefs and values with each other and with the community in civil and respectful ways. And so after a tragedy like our country repetitively has experienced, we felt called to action. And that's why we're all here. We are going to talk in a little bit more detail about how tonight's going to go and our hopes and expectations for tonight. But at its core, Lee and I and our group have provided this opportunity for us all to be together tonight to practice listening and talking to each other about safety in our schools, about the role and the place of guns in our community and in our families, and how we can respond as a community.
We had a candidate come to one of our meetings recently, a candidate for Congress come, and she said something that challenged me personally. She said, "Remember, you guys are all in an echo chamber here." Like, that being all of us that were a part of Indivisible, a pretty strong, progressive, and liberal group. And when we get together, we talk to one another, and we shake our heads. You get it. You know how things are. Yeah, you get it. I understand you. We're on the same page. And we connect. We have relationships, friendships with one another. And what it does, I think, is it serves to create a stalemate. And I think that we're seeing this on all levels of government, that neither side knows how to speak to one another because we don't have to. We're not really forced to, because we can utilize social media and we can utilize the people in our community who think like us and never have to challenge ourselves. And so, yeah, we're here because we want to learn, we want to grow. We thought it would be, Crystal and I said early on, it'd be great to get us all together to talk, to listen and learn from one another. Wouldn't it be such a tragedy if the only people that showed up are people that agree with us? And I know that that's not the case tonight, so that makes me both excited and it makes me nervous because I'm going to hear things, right? Because I'm going to hear things that I don't particularly understand, but I think that we have to. I have to listen to you because we share this community together, and I think you're here because you want the community to be safe. I want it to be safe. And so there's really no other agenda tonight other than, by trade, we're social workers and therapists. So what we know how to do is try to help people hear and listen to one another. And so that's simply what we're going to do. And it's not, I hope that you'll try, as we read through these guidelines of what we're going to do tonight, we'll let people have the floor, and you'll trust that we're going to do our best to make sure everyone gets heard, everyone gets about the same amount of time to speak that wants to, and that we can consider, hopefully we can consider this the beginning of some good dialogue as a community.
So in order to provide everybody sense of community tonight, so where we all feel like we can participate and share. We have put together a few guidelines for us to go by. And Lee and I are going to attempt to hold us all to these guidelines, so we might be asking people to remember, you know, this list here. We want, I don't know, I feel like I don't want to waste time like reading through them. Do you think I should though? Okay, so, okay, thanks for that. Okay, so we want everybody to speak from your own experience. So when you're speaking, be sure to own your own experience. To say, from my experience, or as a social worker, you know, speak from your own experience. And when you are stating your opinion, acknowledge this explicitly. We really want to work to separate opinion from fact tonight. So own it when you know you're stating your opinion. That leads, into the next one. Only cautiously label information as fact. Consider, how do I know what I'm stating is a fact? This one's tough for me. Listen without interrupting. It's tough, right? Sometimes someone's sharing something and it's everything in you wants to cut them off, but practice that one tonight.
Something that I'll sometimes tell couples that I'm working with or families is I want you to listen louder than you talk. Right? So we're gonna all try to practice that as much tonight. And speaking from our own experience, I just wanted to comment. I don't think it is not these and all these guidelines are not meant to control how you speak. We're just giving guidelines for how we think you can be heard best. So if I stand up and I begin blaming, if I say, let me tell you the problem with the Second Amendment people, how quickly have I lost you? How quickly have you shut down on everything I'm about to say? Right? How quickly have you begin forming your own defense? So that's why these guidelines are here, so that your voice is more powerful if we follow these guidelines.
Number 4, listen actively with an ear to understanding others' views. Don't just think about what you're going to say while someone else is talking. Listen to what they're saying. Criticize ideas, not individuals. So, you were kind of getting at that, Lee, when we speak about whole groups of people. Try to avoid doing that. Commit to listening and learning, not debating. If we try to bring ourselves back to the goal tonight that we're here to listen and share ideas with each other versus decide who's right and wrong. We can't do that tonight. Avoid blame, speculation, and inflammatory language. Allow everyone a chance to speak, so we're going to try to, if you've already spoken once, there's many, many people here. We're going to try to give somebody else the floor. Avoid assumptions about individuals or generalizations about social groups. Do not ask individuals to speak for their perceived social group. Don't ask me to speak for all women. Or all Democrats. I can't do that. Okay? Any beefs with any of these guidelines?
We don't know how to do it any other way. So it's okay if you don't like these, and if you're going to say no to these, no problem. But here tonight, we have to enforce them as much as we can. If you start criticizing one another, we're gonna shut it down. Yeah.
Are you going to have a time limit?
That's a good question. We were debating like 3 or 4 minutes apiece, and I think that's around where we'll keep it. But if somebody's on a roll and goes 4 or 5, I think that's okay. But we'll probably give you a warning. We'll say like, hey, you can wrap it up, or 30. You've got about 30 seconds left. Well, we'll try to give a gentle suggestion.
And regardless of how much we all have to say, we'd like to be done at 8:30. Lee and I have to work tomorrow. I'm sure you all do too, so.
I know, I'm retired.
It can't be done in one night. It would be great if at 8:30 everybody wants to keep talking because they feel like they have more to say and they feel like people will listen. That means we're ready for another one. We'll do a longer one, a big one, maybe one on a Saturday, and we can keep going. And as we strengthen in our ability to listen and hear one another, maybe it can turn into a debate where it's not heated, where we respect each other because we've already heard one another. So that if the expectation is that we're going to solve the problem tonight, I'm not sure I can share that one.
Are you going to list things that come up, ideas, and so that they're on something permanent?
Record somewhere?
Yeah, on record.
I've done these before. And
Yeah.
Yep, we had
That's a good.
hoped to, but they didn't get
I
organized.
wrote down all the ideas.
Yeah.
I just did that. And then
All right, and just put them up there. That's an awesome idea. It's not. We didn't think about that tonight. That's a great idea. Maybe in the future we will.
yeah.
One thing we wanted to let everyone know is that there is some media here and they are recording our conversation, so we just want everyone to be aware of that, and that might help us
So some notes will
catalog
be.
what's being said later.
Well, and everything is going to be videoed. So Lincoln Lewis County is videotaping. So that'll be a record of. It's a great idea for the future.
Any other questions about process or intention for this evening? Okay. So why did you come? Why are you here? Yes.
I'm a social worker. I work in a school, and I've had to hide under those tables with those kids, and it's a little bit scary. And never used to be scared to go to work, but I'm a little more afraid now than I used to be. So just concerned about the kids, about the community. That's why I'm here.
Raise your hand.
If you'd like to stand up too, so your voice grows a little more. If you want.
Good job.
I'm here because one thing that I don't understand is whenever something happens with guns, the immediate response seems to be that it's not a gun issue, it's a people issue. And I don't understand why that same mentality doesn't recur in terms of the opioid epidemic. I never hear anybody say, it's not about the drugs, it's about the person. Or marijuana's illegal. Obviously, it's about marijuana. That's what I don't understand. That's what I would like to understand.
Way to speak from your own experience.
Hi everybody, my name's Jim Forney. I came here tonight because I heard about it and I wanted to see what was going on. I'm retired Air Force, and then I took another oath to support and defend the Constitution for the Army as a civilian employee. I work as an explosive safety specialist, and I guess I'm here to listen, but I agree that there's a breakdown in communication because people see things differently. One of the things that always kind of catches me is certain types of weapons that are out there today we don't need. And when this country was born, everyone had the same equipment. And that's where technology has taken us today. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but just me personally, I'm going to support the Second Amendment and what it stands for. I'm also going to support what the Supreme Court or the laws say. I personally have lost 4 friends to suicide over the years, 3 of them to guns. But I honestly believe the majority of the problem we experience in our communities with violence has to do with poverty and a degradation of our social fabric. And it's not saying that it's right or wrong, because I've been divorced a couple times. But when we're raising children in single-parent homes, there's a breakdown in that. And I think overall that's what we're experiencing. And as technology has grown, we have these children who are more and more isolated from others, and I don't think they get the opportunity to experience the frustrations and conflicts that we have with people, and how we negotiate those in a positive way. A lot of times, and this isn't to blame it, but when we look at the amount of violence that we see on TV and in video games, and what is acceptable in those platforms, I think has a lot to do with what we're seeing in our streets today. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, obviously, I'm with the NRA. I'm not the NRA. I'm with it. But I like to echo what it is. And I've got years on it. I'm 77. And I grew up in the family was a family. And as time went on, even my family started breaking up, more or less. The wife had to go to work. The kids were teenagers. I was working. So it made me, we were just going apart. And it got worse later on. Not for my family, but for a lot of other people. Every couple who's both got to work. You can't make it if you don't both work. So this is where a lot of our problems come from. And there is problems with mental illness. A lot of these violent acts tie up to people that have mental problems. Not necessarily problems that maybe you might pick up on. And in the Second Amendment, it isn't about the kind of gun, it's about the policies. The Second Amendment was to give the people, a way of standing up to politicians. That's really what it was for, to make sure they stayed in place. That's what it really was for. That was the beginning of it. They didn't trust the government to treat them right, and that's where it comes from. A lot of people look at it differently, but that's really what it's about. That we got gun rights from it is true, but that's where that came from. And as a wildlife biologist, that's what I was when I did my work in my life. Guns are important to manage wildlife. If we don't have guns, we can't manage wildlife, especially large wildlife like deer and bear. In New Jersey, they've got more bears than they know what to do with, and yet they're going to have a cold season. What's this going to mean? There's going to be a lot of damage done by bears. Here we've got too many deer, and we're running out of hunters. And we can't get them to shoot enough deer. Some places you'll see, there's really not an awful lot of deer here, but most places where people drive, there's a lot of deer. And there's a lot of accidents. So that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you.
Question. For this gentleman that just spoke, do you recognize and see that there is a need to allow the guns that you're talking about that are useful for the reasons you mentioned? Do you see a reason why a lot of people could agree with that type of usage of gun, and then not allowing the automatic weapons that are doing this horrible massacre?
I'll just give you a quick example. If there's such a thing as a militia, and there is, and we have had the militia one time come up in Kentucky and fight the government to get back what that was right. If right now the military has got all these kinds of guns, I don't, and most hunters don't. We don't have bazookas, we don't have machine guns, we don't have 50 caliber machine guns, and most of us, as far as I know, don't have automatic rifles. And I particularly don't want one. State law says if I want to hunt deer, I cannot have more than 7 rounds in my gun.
So you see it's a reasonable thing to restrict the type of gun, maybe?
Well, you're not going to be able to do all of those things. You can't nitpick. Why would you want to restrict it? What is the purpose of that?
Well, having a type of a gun that can blow down and mow down 50 people at a time with a big cartridge that shoots out 100 bullets at a time versus...
All right, guys, I just want to, I hear you, but
I wondered
we
if
don't
there's a
want,
difference.
I think that maybe if you want to speak,
Yeah.
you can speak, but I don't want to let back and forth get started,
Oh,
because how
no.
do we moderate that?
No,
You know?
I
So
just wondered,
go ahead,
I just
ask
wondered
good
if you thought it was
they're good
reasonable.
questions, and
questions,
it's
but
good-
just
it's good
pose it
dialogue.
to everyone. So
Okay.
pose it to everyone.
All right. I mean, I do understand the rights of people to own guns, the use of them, controlling wildlife, and everything he said. I just wonder if he thinks it's reasonable to maybe just restrict the type of guns that were used in Las Vegas.
So, yeah,
Multi-cartridge, whatever they are, that can shoot out so many bullets at a time.
you see that there's good reason for some
I wondered
restriction.
if that was something.
If someone
So
could
can you-
respond to that, you're
Yeah, if
asking
someone
someone
else
to
would
respond.
Well,
to
and
it,
I'm wondering
because
if
I
you
believe
can-
in-
If you can speak a little bit about where you're coming from, or what you would
sure,
like to see.
yeah.
And then there's several people who.
Well, I do think that people should have the right to have guns and own hunting equipment and stuff like that, but I really think that we should be able to perhaps eliminate the type of guns that can do a mass killing like went on in Las Vegas, and where you can shoot out 100 rounds at a time. I have no problems with gun ownership, just specific types of guns that can do that kind of awful damage in a short period of time. And I wondered what gun owners think about that, I guess, is my question. Gun advocates.
I can answer that.
Go ahead.
I hate speaking in public, so this is huge. I can't even get you up at church. Little background. Lifelong hunter. I think I slept with a gun in the crib. I've had an opportunity to hunt all over North America. Big guns, little guns, handguns. I'm now 40 years concealed carry in like 35 states. I've had a chance to live, travel. I love to hunt. I love my guns, and I got piles of them. But most of them are single shot, ram a bullet down, black powder. That's what the Constitution gave us, was a black powder gun. Everything beyond that is a gift. We started with horse and buggies. Now we have cars that go 150 miles an hour. Does everybody need one? No. The high-powered rifles that we're talking about are different than my hunting rifles, completely different. And the design and purpose of those guns was for human consumption. This is what gets me so upset, because it is unnecessary. When they undid the Brady Bill, it unleashed a torrent on our society that is still being reaped almost weekly now in schools. Easy target. I do not like those weapons. I owned one once, shot it once, got rid of it, long before any of this happened, because it was just, I did the research on the gun. Every gun I own, I know the history of, what company designed them. I won't buy a gun now from a company that makes a high-capacity AR-15, because it's for one thing and one thing only. You cannot shoot a deer with it. It doesn't work. But when it hits a human, it destroys him, because there was a bullet designed to get around a NATO law for a hollow point bullet. So when this bullet hits you, it's long and narrow, super fast, and tumbles when it goes through you. There's nothing left. Not a gun for any society. I hunt and fish and shoot regularly. We buy 1,000 rounds at a time. I can't do that through the New York Safe Act anymore. You know something? I'm good with it. We live in a state with very strict laws. I'm good with every one of them because of the situation. I got kids in California. I have a daughter in Arizona, big shooter. She'll get the family weapons. She is stunned at the lack laws down there. She would walk through stores, people are walking around with guns on their shoulders and stuff. That's not what this country is about. There's a medium in here somewhere, but as an avid gun owner, there's no place in any society for those weapons. And I will stand up in a crowd, which I hate. Thank you very much.
Sir in the black jacket.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming. This is what this is about, ladies and gentlemen. Open and honest communication. Our society has been so torn apart by the divide that's been created, and we need to talk to each other, because at the end of the day, we're all friends, we're all neighbors, we all get along, we all live in this community, and we have to we have to be a community, and we have to come together. And I am an avid gun owner. I'm a Second Amendment advocate. And there's just a whole lot of information out there that is not being told and explained to the public to what different guns are and the capacities and everything like that. Any gun in the wrong hands is a horrible thing. Any gun in the right hands is nothing more than a tool, a machine. It's for hunting, it's for self-defense, it's for shooting clay pigeons, even though I haven't figured out how to cook one of those yet. But we start talking about high capacity. Now let's put this in relativity. You've got an AR-15, and let's say somebody puts a 30-round magazine in it. Okay, fine. But everybody wants to say a 12-gauge shotgun's okay. All right? You've got a 12-gauge shotgun loaded with double-aught buck. An AR-15's a .223, which is .22 caliber. A 12-gauge shotgun with double-aught buck has 9 .22 caliber pellets. So when you start pulling the trigger, what are you going to send down range? You pull the trigger 30 times with an AR-15, 30 .22 caliber projectiles go out. You've got 9 in each shotgun shell. Pull the trigger 6 times, do the math. So to say that one is different from the other, or one can cause more damage than the other, is a fallacy. It's all about the wrong gun in the wrong hands. And then they start saying this bullet goes in, and this bullet tumbles, and this bullet tears up. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, as somebody who's shot deer, who's shot big game, any bullet hitting any type of flesh or any type of material is gonna do damage. There's a little gun called a 17 HMR. That thing is traveling at a high rate of speed, and the wound trail is going to be just as bad as any AR-15. Again, the wrong gun, the wrong hands, we've got a problem. What we have in this society is a breakdown of moral values and moral issues. If you go around, you talk to your friends, you talk to your neighbors. I'm 53. In the 80s when I went to school, you took your shotgun, you broke it in two, you stuck half in each sleeve, you went into school, you stuck it in your locker. When school was over, you went duck hunting. Every truck in the parking lot had a gun rack in it. So something has changed, and again, you're right. These damn things right here. Computers, the desensitizing of our society, the kill shots in the movies, the Grand Theft Auto, all these things, these kids are just inundated with it because nobody wants to parent anymore. These kids get put in front of TVs and video games for hours and hours and hours, and there's been this breakdown to where this is okay. And we also live in a society where it's here and now. It used to be if you had a problem with your car, you got it fixed. Now you get a flat tire, you trade the car in. So children are being taught to live in the here and now, and they don't think of the ramifications of their action. Now there is things that we can do. We start talking about background checks.
Just wrapping up.
Sure,
Yes.
background checks. We don't have a problem. We don't have a problem with background checks. Also, one of the things that we're seeing that in this recent shooting in Florida, why wasn't all of the information about this young man brought to light? And one of the things that we really have to start looking at is this: when young people commit crimes, then their record gets expunged at 18, so there's nothing there for the NICS check system to pick up. So if we can start looking at enhancing the background checks with doing stuff like this, where if younger people have committed crimes, then we can start getting better information to the NICS system, have a more efficient system, and that's how we can start keeping bad guns away from bad people. And I'd like to thank you all for listening.
Who else would like to speak? Sir?
Patrick Morris. I'm founder of North Country Friends of the Second Amendment. I'm the president of Lowville Fishing Game Club. Been a life member of the NRA since I was 21 years old, and I'm 53 now. And does anyone know the first school shooting? Texas A&M in the 70s? That guy used a bolt-action rifle that had a 3-shot capacity. And I believe he killed 26 people. So I'm just telling you, high-capacity magazines in New York State, they have arbitrarily said that you can have a 10-round, but not a 12-round. Well, you carry 3 10-rounds, and you can just reload them really fast. As far as the AR-15 is concerned, they are a cosmetic look-alike to the military version, but they are nothing like the military version. That's like saying you go down to Essilor's, buy a Monte Carlo, paint it with NASCAR stickers, and you got a Daytona 500 car. They're very, very different. Are they lethal? Yes, every firearm's lethal. What I don't like is every single time there is a gun crime, tragedy, we talk about the perpetrator for 5 seconds, then we talk about the gun. But when someone mows down people with a tractor trailer in France or something, nobody talks about outlawing tractor trailers. Why? Because it's ridiculous, because it was the guy driving the thing. Same with knives, same with matches, baseball bats, and everything else. A lot of children die in this country every day, and it's really sad, and we have to protect them. But there's 3 groups of people in this country, and I'm going to really generalize. The government, soldiers, police, etc. The bad guys, and everybody else. Okay? Gun laws are going to take away from one group of people to everybody else. Bad guys are still going to have them. Murder's still against the law. And one more thing I want to talk about is gun-free zones. Since 1990, when the Gun-Free Zone Act passed, there's been like a 5,000% increase in school shootings. Now, we've heard some people talk about society has changed even since 1990. But I'm a highly trained person with a firearm. I carry concealed almost everywhere except in the gun-free zone, and that's the only place I'm defenseless. I am very much for having a law that allows a school board to authorize teachers who want to and who have been thoroughly vetted and trained to be a first responder. At a school shooting, 3 to 5 minutes, and if it's Harrisville Central School, it's a heck of a lot longer than that for a police response. You need 3 to 5 seconds before somebody's there. One resource officer isn't going to do it. He could be in the bathroom. You know, it could take him a minute and a half. 10% of your teachers, all of a sudden you got 10 first responders. You know, they have to, of course, protect their children, but at least if they're in the classroom, instead of saying, please don't shoot, they can fight back. And I will tell you, these are FBI statistics, that almost every one of these gunmen, once they face law enforcement, they either commit suicide or they give up because they're cowards. All you gotta do is point a gun at them and they run. That's all I had to say.
It does seem that the point made about the dangerous high velocity ammunition is one simple step that could be done, because we've heard you don't need them to hunt, they have one purpose: kill people. Fine, that is something that can be done. It would not infringe upon anyone's rights, any logical, reasonable right to, what do you need it for? That's the question. So if you, and with a gun control law, you're not looking to control people. You're looking to control access to dangerous things. I've been driving a long time now. Got a license. Own many cars. They're registered. They're insured. Cars are dangerous. Guns are dangerous too, but you don't need any qualification. You don't need to register. You don't insure. In Canada, the recent Harper government has been voted out, but Canada had a national firearm registry, and the Harper government destroyed it completely. Canada is approaching gun danger, not at our level, no one's at our level, but they've taken steps in that direction. So, go back to the cop. Licensed insured registered. I know it's not a perfect comparison, but the governor of Florida, Mr. Scott, no friend of Second Amendment opponents, but he has proposed that assault cop. I realize an assault rifle is a semi-automatic weapon with a capacity of 10, 20, 30. And you're right about the fast change magazines. But Mr. Scott has said, you can't buy one unless you're 21. That's a start. So, perhaps a few more restrictions on who have guns, and we've talked about keeping them out of the hands of the mentally ill. We have to know who the mentally ill are, and we have to know where the guns are. No one has ever in the history of this country, no government has come to your door and said, give me your guns. Politically, it's impossible. It's a straw man.
Yes?
I would like to switch the conversation. My concern is I'm a mother of 3 with all 3 of my kids going to Beaver River School. I would like to know how my children are being protected in school, other than, I mean, obviously it's gun-free zone. What can we do? What is going to happen, especially since we've had this issue with Lowville? I see we have some Lowville people here, so maybe they can, help us out with that, make us feel more secure, come up with something.
So you want to hear about safety
Yes.
in schools and, okay, see a hand back there?
I'm also a parent of 3 that go to South Louis, and back in 1999 I went to a wrestling tournament in Gloucester, Virginia. When I walked into the school, I walked through a metal detector, and all your bags were searched. This was before all this mass shooting that we've seen locally. And then 6 years ago, I was in Washington, D.C., and I walked into the Holocaust Museum, and there's a plaque on there of a guard that was killed. Right after that guard was killed, every museum in Washington has a metal detector for bag, and about 3 guards at the door. And that's just protecting stuff that's relics. Our kids are our greatest commodity that we have. And, it's like the sheriff said, they're not protected. I'm in agreement. Highly trained teachers, great. It would create jobs for police officers to be at the schools. Have a single entrance into the school.
Yeah.
I've been a teacher for 25 years at Carthage High School, and we also had a threat right before winter vacation. So I've been in the position of sort of being trapped. It's not fun. And even though we really didn't think anything was going to happen per se, like we're seeing on television, the thought of having teachers being trained and having guns in different parts of the school, my school, I'll just speak for myself, is actually quite frightening. I've seen a lot of kids, 25 years, let's say 100 kids per year, 2,500 kids that I've actually known. Never mind the kids that just simply walk through our halls every day. People don't understand the variables that happen at school with kids, the access that they could get to a gun if it's not on the person. I can't even leave my purse in my locker, in my classroom locker, because I don't even feel that that's secure. I have to leave it by my desk, locked up in my desk. I have a feeling that people don't understand that kids know everything at school. They would figure out which teachers have the guns. They could possibly threaten another student at school if they knew that they could get access to a gun, or hurt somebody else to get a gun. I'm just saying that the first time that I heard the president say that he thought teachers would be more effective with guns than the SROs floored me. I don't think even trained teachers is the way to go. I think we should start with other things first. Metal detectors, great. Better alarms, maybe on the doors, like they do in certain parts of the hospital, so patients can't leave. Things like that. But starting with the first suggestion that teachers be trained and carry guns in school is worse to me than, you know, everything else that's happened, almost, because I feel like we're going to have more tragedy if that happens.
Yeah, thank you for those of you that are starting our conversation too, that encourage us to speak up on both sides of the issue, or on all sides of the issue. More? Yeah.
My name's Jane, and I just kind of want to piggyback off what you said. I too have 3 kids that are in school. My husband's a disabled vet, but is also a teacher. My dad is 32 years active duty military still. I've been around guns all my life. It's nothing new to me. But I think the real issue really, and I know why I'm here, is because of the school issue. You see at Beaver River, you are stopped the second you open that door, and you cannot get any further until you have visual contact with a person. I would love to see teachers with guns, but I agree, kids know everything. Kids will figure out who has the guns. But when we're sending our kids to school scared because my 2nd graders coming home saying, "Mom, am I gonna get shot at school?" That's not okay. Where is the security in these other schools? My kids go to Lowville. You walk to that door, you push that buzzer, and you're in. And you can go anywhere in that school. Yeah, you're supposed to go to the office. Does everybody go to the office? Probably not. And that's where it's scary. I heard another friend of mine, her daughter said, "Why are we having these drills?" Well, in case you have a shooter. Okay, but the shooter's gonna be sitting next to me. That's where the problem is. The problem is the kids. The problem is the kids are getting the access. It's the social media. It's the single parents. It's the both parents working, and you have the guns at home, and the kids are bringing them to school. Or the threat is made that something's going to happen at the school. We're focused so much on the adults and so much on the laws when these kids open their mouths and instantly scare each other. Verbal is just as scary as actually doing it.
Very good.
Yeah, let's move on.
Does anybody have any, if you might not have a comment, but you might have a question for others? Yes.
How you doing? I'm Sheriff Carpinelli, Lewis County. I just wondered, I didn't get contacted or reached for any information in regards to about school security, or I haven't sat down with any members of the Indivisible Lowville team to help you out. I was just wondering if maybe you might, I'm available if you'd like me to be there and to talk to you and to help you out.
Thank you for responding to our invitation to be here tonight.
Thank you.
Gabby?
So I'm a student at Lowville, and after we had an incident on Monday, a lot of my friends have come up to me and said, "Hey, like, if anything happens, like, I love you, you're my friend." And I'm a hunter. I've hunted all my life, like a lot of people in here, and I plan to continue to do that for a long time. I also wouldn't mind going through background check after background check, and I wouldn't mind having metal detectors at every door in my school. I don't want to have to go to school where I'm getting an education and be afraid to go to school. And I'm afraid. And I don't think that, I'm not going to stand here and be naive and say that if we ban guns, that's going to solve the problem. I know that it isn't, but I know that my peers and I don't want to be another name on the news, so I don't think it can hurt to exercise every resource that we have and try to help stop this.
I have something to say about that. Everybody in this room is a parent, including myself. You shouldn't be saying that. But you know what? If you want to hear it or not, I'll tell it to you like it is. We're all to blame. All of us. Okay? I'll tell you why. Because we're letting our children down the way we're bringing them up. We're letting them down by the way we're bringing them up. Because we're not bringing them up like we were all brought up. We're not. When we start looking in the mirror at ourselves and say, what was wrong with the way that our grandparents brought our parents up? What was wrong with the way you people raised us? Why are we not doing the same with them? Why are we treating them as children? But yet at 18 years old, they can enlist in the military and serve as I did. Carry that M16. You taught how to take a life. At 18, you're not a child. Kids in school that are 15, 16, 17, 18, like the school teacher spoke about, you're right. They do know a lot more than we think. But you know what? We're not stupid. We were the same way. Why have we forgotten this? Why have we forgotten that? The basics. As administrators, teachers, police chiefs, and sheriffs, why are we given a task to raise everybody's child? We're supposed to be there to protect them. We're supposed to be there to educate them, not raise them. That's the parents' responsibility. Now, we'll help, but it's not our primary responsibility. When you start putting people and holding them accountable, such as the parents to do their job, the teachers to do their job, the police to do their job, the doctors and psychiatrists and counselors to do their job, everything will work again. But right now, everybody's got 15 different hats they're wearing. We're trying to go around and give these kids hugs, Band-Aids. We're lying to them about how the world truly is because we don't want to hurt them. Well, look what we've done. I'm not going to talk about guns because guns aren't the problem. People are the problem. And yeah, that hurts when you hear the truth. You gotta look in the mirror. Hurts me. And you said, I'll take ownership for what's wrong too. But you know what? We have to treat our so-called younger people, I'm gonna call them young people, not children, that they do have a brain in their head. That they've got a heart and a conscience. They know what's wrong and they know what's right. They know what friend is maybe a little bit unstable. Well, then why don't you go tell somebody? When they tell that person, i.e. a teacher, a counselor, a principal, a superintendent, that's now their responsibility to protect that child inside the school to start that way. When they feel it's necessary to threaten that there's something that's very serious, then that school administrator should contact law enforcement. Then we'll step in next and we'll investigate. Hopefully protect that individual. Get them the treatment that they need. Go from there. But it starts right there with treating our young people like they do have some intelligence and have something to speak about. Let them be heard. Maybe what I think we should do is let them tell us what they want instead of us telling them how I'm going to protect them. Because I can't protect them outside. The only time I can protect them is inside that school. That's another person with a weapon. It's the only way children are going to be safe. protection that way. But they will be safe if we start treating them like young adults, teaching that it's okay to go to a teacher and say, hey, so-and-so just made this threat. I'm upset by it. I want something done about it. That's where it starts. To put the blame on guns, to put the blame on everybody else, we gotta stop doing that. Let's take a deep breath. Let's take our thoughts and slow down just a little bit. I think we listen to them first and build out from there. I think it's a good thing we should do. Because we've got all the answers, so we think already, because we've been around 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years already. But we haven't been in school where they have been. Just heard that from the teacher. She's afraid to leave her pocketbook out. In a public school today? A pocketbook? I can tell you right now, both my parents were teachers. Somebody grabbed my mother's pocketbook back then, or my father's watch, probably got their head knocked off. They rightly should have. One time, I'll teach them a lesson, not to steal. We don't do that anymore. Let's start listening to them a little bit and see what happens. Thanks. Thank you.
We're going to see if some other people who haven't spoken yet. Yeah.
So, my name is Josh. I'm a senior at Lowville Academy, and I'm usually not. I haven't done any public speaking, but it's kind of. So I'm kind of nervous. English, I've often heard people say I've heard many different perspectives here, and that's the reason why I came here. I wanted to hear as many perspectives as I possibly could. And the thing is, I've noticed that people there's multiple things. Like, some people say it's related to guns, some people say mental health, some people will say society. I think it's a little bit of everything. And when it comes to guns, I think an easy solution would be to increase background checks, and also to require safety training. And for and if we want to prevent kids from having guns, I'd say require legal guardians to have gun safes. Now, for mental health, I think we should increase access to mental health care and put less of a stigma on people who seek help to make it so they can easily seek help. And that's the other thing with civil society. And there's this fear that if we seek help, then we're going to be ostracized from everyone else. So I think we need to let people know it's okay to ask for help.
I promised myself that the only thing that I would talk about tonight is mental health. And I'd love to also talk to whoever's willing to talk about it. I was trained as a psychologist, and I've been trained in threat assessment. There is not a profile that fits a shooter. In fact, the static factors, so when we're talking about an individual who displays personality characteristics over time that becomes a shooter, that fit me in high school. They're a bit isolated, they're a bit depressed, they're a bit fixated or obsessed with something. And it makes up about 30-40% of the teen population today. The dynamic factors are bursts of rage that have to be caught within a very short amount of time. Many of them look very healthy, and as a mental health person who's worked in inpatient facilities, there have been threats. The kid comes in, says, I was mad, I was angry, no big deal. Give them a full evaluation. There's no reason to hold them. So when we say we have it's a mental illness issue, there's 48% of the population fits a mental health diagnosis. People with schizophrenia are not more likely to harm another person than someone without the diagnosable disorder. Somebody with bipolar disorder is not more likely. They may be more likely to hurt themselves, but not more likely to hurt other people. So that's really the only point that I wanted to make and bring that to life and piggyback off of what you said about stigma. I think it's really important.
Thank you.
Oh.
Hi, Mr. Daddy. I am a veteran. I haven't been since 2002, but I do remember basic training in AIT. When I was taught the M16, I didn't really, I was having some issues with it, you know, respect for the gun, the weapon, because, you know, in the military it's a weapon. And, but one thing I remember is that when Drill Sergeant Pruitt was telling us to handle our weapon when we were going on our range, when we're on the range, is to make sure you point the weapon down range. You have respect for it. Where's the respect for other people who, when those shooters were pointing the guns, where's the respect that other people are having? Basically, my point is that there isn't any respect that young people are taught now. Most people are not taught nowadays. If we decide to start from the ground up, from kindergarten and up, teaching our kids respect for guns, not just fear for them, but respect for them, you know, gun training, you know, make classes come back that are at schools who want to learn how to use weapons. I've heard that it has happened before, in the past. So why not now? I mean, it's not that much of a big leap forward. I know that there are people who would be against the idea because they don't want their kids to have access, but sometimes we should be able to let them protect themselves to have that choice. But again, raise the kids with respect for other people so that we don't have to worry about when they have that weapon in their hands that they will be even tempted because they'll have that respect. That's what I'm going to say. It's entitlement. I don't. Yeah.
Thank you.
I had Jeff Matt Honorsdale. I had a question about your comment regarding the 43% of people that fit the mold at some point, and you made a comment about a burst of rage or some moment where something can occur. And recently I was in the Pew Institute research about suicides and all the different methods people may use to attempt suicide, and the proportion or a success ratio of suicide attempts with some type of a lethal weapon is much greater than any other type of attempt. And I'll get to my point somehow. Is there, from your training and that 43% of people, is there any statistical evidence as to what happens if they do or do not have access to a lethal weapon?
The question is there research around suicide and whether or not
I'm trying to make a correlation between what I read about if we could keep lethal weapons away from people that are in a mindset to attempt suicide, their success ratio is going to be much lower.
Right.
And is there something that says the same to that broad population that you were talking about?
Yeah, I'm not. No, I can't speak. I could go look at the research, but I can't speak intelligently about it. Other than to say that more teen females, 2 or 3 times more teen females attempt suicide, but males are more successful at it because males want to use the macho guns. Girls, females go after the pills and are just less successful at it. So that there's a correlation between means, but one can't say, for instance, that those teen girls in those studies don't have access to the guns. It's just about what means they're choosing.
But they're generally less successful.
Because they're choosing less lethal means.
Right. You have to have means. You have to have means. In fact, it's part of what we'll use to hospitalize someone is what means do they have. If they have a plan in place, if they're feeling like they want to go and leave the world, they haven't identified a means, we got something to work with. We don't need to lock them up real quick. They just don't. They're reaching for nothing, and we can give them maybe something other than something that will hurt.
In that vein, the use of a more lethal instrument and the differences between gender, is that also not specific or related to the difference between gender?
Is that difference?
The males tend to choose a more lethal method than females do, but there's a motivation behind that, and it's not the to be unsuccessful or just make a vain attempt.
Yeah.
It's vanity quite often. Is that correct in the less lethal methods used by females?
I think it's a very, we want to limit the back and forth like this, but as a therapist myself and chair of the Lewis County, co-chair with Anna of the Lewis County Suicide Prevention Coalition, I feel that there's just like mass shootings, there are so many dynamics at play with suicide attempts: gender, access to means, mental health, physical health, age. It's impossible for any professional to summarize a question like that. I think.
They're really good questions.
Yeah. People write PhDs about them. Yeah.
There's a question about the treatment of the mental illness with these cocktails of chemicals, the SSRIs. Do you see any correlation between the two?
Yeah, I don't.
So, I mean, there's a lot of data out there saying.
Do you have something to say about that?
Yeah. No, I see it in the news. I see the data there. I don't know if it's true. I just want to know if you.
Oh yeah. I can't speak to it.
We all know the side effects that they list in the commercials and stuff when they are advertising pills, but I have heard quite a bit through the years of these SSRI drugs, these serotonin, whatever it is. And there seems to be a correlation between the mass shooters and taking these SSRI drugs.
Does anyone want to say anything or comment in more detail about access to mental health care in our community, or
Hi everyone, my name's Ben Birchnoff. I'm the case manager at TLS, so I'm involved in the mental health community. Just the one thing I would like to say is that the mentally ill are more likely to be victims of violence than to be perpetrators of violence. That's been shown time and time again. The problem is our terminology is very poor. We don't have a way to label people that are, because school shooters aren't functioning members of society. They're not normal in the sense that you or I or anyone else is, but mentally ill isn't the correct word either, because it's just a sloppy term, I feel. A lot of these kids have problems with societal connections, things like that, where they're just isolated, or they're separate from their community, and that's what separates them, not so much that they have schizophrenia or bipolar, because a lot of them don't. A lot of these school shooters and mass shooters don't have these diagnosable problems. So mental illness as a whole it's just a really poor term to describe like why are all these mentally ill people shooting up schools. It's just a very poor terminology for it. But there's something that sets them apart. I don't necessarily think mental illness is the correct word though.
My name is Paul Klutz. I'm a teacher. I was a social worker. I was in the military. I was a resident volunteer at the state mental hospital for a while. I actually lived 2.5 years on site with clients. And I teach 5th grade. And one of my favorite things about 5th grade are the discussions. You know, I know you have a curriculum, but there are times in the day when you have to take time to just talk and touch base with all your students. And this right now is a classroom. Everybody's kind of touching base with each other, and we are the adults here. We've got a lot of great points. But what a wonderful thing to continue this discussion, not only with your family when you go home, but with neighbors and people in church and people you see in social situations. And I think we've got away from discussions. It's my favorite part of what I teach are the discussions. And discussions with adults are tougher, but they're also just wonderful. And they keep our fabric together. And if we don't take time for discussions, things are going downhill. We just gotta figure out a way, even if we have different opinions, to talk about them. I have a great group of friends. I have poker buddies. We are from all different spectrums, and we have a great time once a month. And do we argue? Do we cuss? Do we laugh? We don't even drink. We tried to drink Mountain Dew for a while. We got too jittery. Alcohol didn't work because then you would just lose all your money. But all different, you know, we have this little group right here. We have snow plow operators. We have principals from high schools. We have teachers. We have janitors. It's just a wonderful thing. Just like we have here. Keep it going. Just keep it going. Spread it out. Thank you.
10 seconds. I just want to acknowledge Lowville Academy, and I'm sure the other schools are really good. The Sources of Strength program that they have, honestly, was a lifesaver for my youngest daughter.
Can you tell them what Sources of Strength is?
It is where's Mr. Steckley? No, but it was Mr. It's a club organization where it's a peer counseling almost in a way, and activities. I know that she went and traveled to some other schools and spoke to the student body at these other schools, explaining that the stigmatism and reaching out for help, there's nothing wrong with that. And in her case, she was able to come to us, and we had her in an inpatient facility for a while so that she could deal with some of the stuff that was going on in her life. But her success today in life is, I think, directly correlated to Sources of Strength and what the school does offer.
Chris, you want to speak?
Hi, I'm Chris Mooney. I've been a teacher for nearly 25 years. I am married to a hunter. We own guns. My daughter is a vegetarian, except she'll only eat what my husband kills. I haven't bought beef in over a decade. We live on venison. So that's where I'm coming from. But I'd like to address a few of the issues that people have brought up. And as people were speaking, I was kind of writing notes, so I'm going to try to go through my list pretty quickly here. First of all, I'd like to address the idea of moral breakdown. As I said, I've been a teacher for nearly 25 years, and I have met the most wonderful people I've ever known in my classroom. Every time there's a tornado or a hurricane, kids from our area go down and help rebuild. We still had people leaving Lowville area to go down to Haiti over February break. I don't believe that. I think that there are wonderful people in this country that would bend over backwards for their next door neighbor and that work tirelessly to raise wonderful children. I've had kids from broken homes who were fabulous individuals who cared and loved and took care of the people that they cared about. So I really want to make that clear. We cannot control how people raise their children. There are going to be problems in some families that we can't do much about, as much as we try with our social networking to care, with our psychologists and our sociologists and everybody around, teachers who want to reach out to kids. Some we just can't reach. I wish we could reach them all. But I do want to stand up for those kids that are absolutely wonderful, and they are 99% of the kids that I've known in my lifetime. Also, I think children are children. And as a biologist, I looked into a lot of neuroscience research and know that MRIs prove that their brains are different. We cannot treat children like adults. They do have to mature, and they do have to come to a point in their lives where about 26 years old is the new age at which a brain is considered mature. Up to that point, they're going back and forth, and they're trying to look to us to seek guidance, and I think that that's our role. I do think, along with the research, that the more guns you have in society, the more murders there are. There are other countries in this world that have grand theft auto. The number of shootings in this country outpace the number of shootings in any other country in the world, and I cannot believe that there are higher rates of mental illness or higher drug abuse problems anywhere else. I think that we are comparative, and I think that we have to look at developed nations and compare what are they doing different, and I think that that would be a start. I heard individuals talk about knives and other types of weapons, other types of tools that could be used as weapons. I still think that a gun can kill more people in one moment in time than a knife or a hammer or whatever it is you want to talk about. And all of those other things have other purposes. Guns have one purpose. I also think that the appearance of a gun may attract some people who have that intent on doing harm. And I do think that the looks of a gun, even if you can make another gun work efficiently, I think the looks of a gun can be attractive, and I worry about that. I also am concerned about the interpretation of the Second Amendment. I find it really interesting that many people think that they understand it. Back in 2008, the Heller case in the Supreme Court led to a 5-4 decision on individual rights. It overturned 70 years of how we interpreted the Second Amendment. It was a 5-4 decision at the Supreme Court. Even they can't agree. In 2010, there was another case, the McDonald's case, that also brought up the Second Amendment. It also ended in a 5-4 decision. If constitutional lawyers cannot agree, then we need to look at what we think the Second Amendment is saying and try to figure out that is there compromise. I so appreciate everybody's opinions here, and I have taken it all to heart. But I think that there is a way to help each other by then agreeing on a compromise. Is there a place in the middle that we can come to say, we want to make our community safer? What can we do?
This has been a great discussion. I want to just talk a little bit about, I think the issue I think every one of us sees, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, is that there's an issue with gun violence in America. We see it. We see it. Chris just made reference to it. There's a reason why we have more gun violence than any other country in the world. And I think we have to look at that. And I also understand that we have different points of view in this room. It's clear. But I think what we have to do is take a look at those areas where we can agree. And I think there's things that 95% of all Americans agree on right now. We have to go and take a look at our gun control laws, but more importantly, we have to take a look at research into what causes people to be violent and what is the relationship of lethal weapons to that violence. At one time, 15 or 20 years ago, the National Institute of Health wanted to study the relationship of gun violence in America. Those funds were cut. They were drastically cut. it seems to me that it's totally insane. We have to take a look at gun violence as a public health issue, just like we look at opioids, just like we look at AIDS. We have to look at it that way. I think that we can agree in here on several things. Background checks is an obvious issue that I think we can all agree on. It seems just so obvious to me. For example, and to take it a little further, why can you go to a gun show and not have to have a background check? Why can you purchase any lethal weapon in the internet, over the internet, and not have to have some kind of check? Those to me seem just so obvious. And I think if you asked people in the country, the majority would say, let's try this. Let's at least try to do this. I just want to finish with one more thing. Chris Murphy was on tonight. I listen to National Public Radio a lot. He was on and he talked about Connecticut after the shooting. Since that shooting, which happened 10 years ago now, 11, I'm not sure, but there's a variety. Is that right, man? I don't know.
5 years ago.
Something like that. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'll finish up here. Since that shooting, Connecticut instituted a whole bunch of things that they're trying to do to stop gun violence. And in those 10 years or 11 years, gun violence has decreased 40% in Connecticut. 40%.
Wrap it up, Randy.
Do we have to have a school shooting in every state? Florida is starting to look at the same thing now. Do we have to have a school shooting or violence in every state before the country can finally come together and say, let's look at this on a national basis? Thanks.
Thank you.
Shannon?
I just wanted to piggyback on the gentleman up in the front was talking about opportunities for discussion, and wouldn't it be nice if our children had the opportunity for discussion? I talk to my daughters a lot about, you know, what's going on in school, and I know of 1 or 2 teachers since, what was it, 11 days ago, the shooting, and that have even mentioned or talked about that happening. And I can't imagine what it's like to be a child, to see what's going on the TV, and then having to go to school, and where it's not even discussed at all. And then having to just go on with your day like nothing's happened, and being in a school, and then to have threats made locally, and you know, obviously heightens their being afraid to go to school. But I don't know if it's taboo or if, you know, we just all get so caught up in our day. But it would be nice if our children had an opportunity to talk about in a group like this, or you know, teachers were able to talk about it, so that in the classroom, because they don't discuss it at all in school.
Hi, my name is Linda Denner, and one of the things that has been bothering me so much about this whole discussion going on is the fact that it seems that we don't really want to really kind of talk about what may be the issue, but we want to divert blame. Whether we want to blame those children that are speaking out in Florida, and oh, you know, those kids, you know, they're just, these are the kids that are eating Tide Pods, you know, and you know, we want to basically, blame the family, or we want to blame, you know, this, but yet we kind of, to me, it almost feels like it's a distraction from what the issue is. One of the things that I will say, you know, when I hear, by the way, I can't refer to young people as kids. I call them students, because I personally think kids is a derogatory term. By the way, I'm a college professor and I've taught for 30 years. So I have been in the classroom with students. I have been in the classroom with students who are diagnosed with post-traumatic stress syndrome. I have been in the classroom with students that have documented disabilities. And I can tell you, communication is the key, and it is the answer. But when are we going to stop, you know, doing the derogatory things? I remember opening up a Facebook page one day and reading the article that, you know, all the liberal college professors should have their brains splattered on the whiteboards in the classroom. I was terrified to go back to school, and for the first time in years, I was horrified. Do I have to go in and teach what I teach differently? By the way, I teach accounting, but we're talking about business. By the way, we talk about taxes, we talk about business, okay. So, you can get into some really interesting discussions. But am I gonna be afraid to go into my classroom and do I have to teach that topic differently now? Because I might offend somebody? And, I'm reading this stuff on social media that, yeah, maybe I should have my brains, splattered on the whiteboard in my classroom. But, if it's not blaming the college professor, it's blaming, those Tide Podders, or those millennials, or those Gen X's. When are we going to stop with the blame game and address the issue? We have a gun violence problem in this country. Period.
Just one quick wrap up. I'm glad everybody was here tonight and I heard both sides. I learned a few things about mental health tonight, so thank you. But what I would implore all you to do is stop getting your information from mainstream media, the internet, or anything else, and go to official government websites for your facts. Because they are twisted, whether you watch CNN on one extreme or Fox on the other, they're extremely biased. I heard tonight that you didn't have to have a background check at a gun show. That's absolutely false. That's right. I heard tonight you don't have to have a background check if you buy online. That's absolutely false. About half the ideas that I heard tonight about laws are already on the books.
That's right.
Criminals don't follow laws.
No.
So I just wanted you to not get your information from CNN or Fox. U.S. government or state of New York government, get it there. It's a little harder to find, but you're not getting opinion. You're not getting my opinion, we're not getting your opinion. And I really think education should come from facts, not fiction, and there's a lot of fiction out there from both sides. That's all.
So, my name's Lori, I'm the pastor of the Presbyterian Church of Lowville, and I debated what to say tonight because we pastors were always used to speaking, but it's hard to know what to say because my heart aches every time I see something happening, and I am the first person to go to prayers because that is my training. But one of the things that I believe with all of my heart is that all of us need to struggle a little bit with how we speak, how we talk to one another, what we post on Facebook at all. When you start looking around, it goes deeper. This violence that we see, the hate that we say in front of our kids, and it's everywhere. You cannot escape it. And until we start a little bit to model that kind of compassion that we've been taught, we're going to have more and more trouble getting along with people and understanding where anybody's coming from. So I commend you for being here tonight. I'm glad to have witnessed this this conversation that's taking place, but I do think that if we can all look a little bit deeper at ourselves, it would help.
We have a little over 10 minutes, and we want to make sure that those that haven't spoken get a chance to.
Up here in the cheap seats. I want to kind of piggyback off what the professor was saying. So, there's a lot of different ways. As a parent, I look at this and I say, yeah, there's this kind of social breakdown in society over years. I can see it. I was raised by a Yonkers City cop. Access to guns all over the place. Thought never crossed my mind. Never crossed my mind to grab them. Of course. My goal for my kids is to hold them accountable for their actions. My prayer is that the sheriff never knows their name. Other than my 15-year-old once so as a parent, yes. As a Christian, I say yes. This is a heart problem. There's it's a fallen world, a fallen society, and I say yes to all that. As a counselor, as a therapist, I say access to mental health has to be better. All the assessments in the world. In fact, when I'm asked to write an assessment on violence, the last thing I add on that is that any assessment can be a predictor of violence, but is never a guarantee of future behavior. Because unless Dr. Vance knows something I don't, there's no assessment that can guarantee a lack of violence in the future. So I say all these are answers, and all these are things that we have to look onto. And I do say, though, on the other side of that, that there is, there's laws on the books, and I think, we need them. But I think, I don't know what the answer is, but something, has to be done. I look at it like this. If my house is burning down, I'm not going to stand there and say, well, those fire extinguishers or the, smoke alarms need to be replaced, or the circuit box was bad. I'm going to get a hose and I'm going to put out the fire, and then I'm going to take care of everything else. So I do think, access to firearms, that can be reduced. If there's things that can be done, then we do it. If there's access to certain types of weapons that don't need to be there, can we do it? Can we take care of these things and then start to figure out, okay, how do we increase mental health access? How do we as parents hold ourselves accountable, hold our kids accountable? Those are things that we need to be doing, but I say, we got to put out the fire first.
My name is Mark O'Connor. I'm a long-time hunter. I have a lot of firearms at home. I raised both my kids to hunt, and they're respectful of guns. And the one thing I wanted to say about kids coming forward and talking. We have one child that will tell us everything in the world, sometimes way too much information. And we have another child that does not talk, but will talk to Mr. Steckley when he was around. And I don't know how you can ever replace Ed, but please try and do something. They have 4 people in there. That's, I think, one of our points is, one of my points is, let the kids go to someone. Sometimes they don't feel comfortable talking to parents. They're more comfortable talking to somebody in the school, like Ed. He was great. And but I think the communication, let that kid talk, let it get out, even though he may not want to tell his parents, or that child may not want to tell his parents. But I think a lot of it has to do with bullying in school. I think we have to look all through that avenue and let there be an avenue for kids to talk, whether they're scared or anxious, or just let it be an open. Hey, it's confidential. But it's so funny because our 2 kids were raised in the exact same house. One will talk, one will not. And I can't imagine a kid that's grown up in poverty in a single family household, bouncing back and forth between parents. How does that kid ever get any information out? So that's just my thoughts. And I don't own any assault weapons. I would never do that. I just never felt the need to. I don't own any pistols because I never had the need to own a pistol. So there's a lot of people that feel differently, but I just never felt I needed one to go have fun. I have fun with my hunting rifles and shotguns, and that's pretty much all I have.
Sitting out a long time. My name is Steve Vance. I've been a business person in Lowville for 40 years and lived here for 60 because I wasn't bright enough to move. And I heard 2 things tonight, please excuse me, that I wanted to talk about. One is the overwhelming concern for the children. And I would encourage you, and the morals and the decay of our society, get involved with something. Child, Ed, who's spoken up very well. I know Ed. Get involved with the program. Get involved with your church. Connect. Take your values and share them. Never been disappointed in the values of our community. The other thing I'd like you to do is consider trusting me as I will try to trust you. I don't hunt. I don't like hunting. But I love the woods. So a hunter is probably my best friend. Because he likes the woods, or she likes the woods too. Trust me that I don't want your hunting rifles. And I will trust you to work with me to ban assault weapons. I hear what you're saying about bolt action and shotguns. The unfortunate truth is that every mass shooting in the last 10 years has been done with an automatic weapon. From Orlando to Las Vegas, and it's all different kinds of people, and there's all wonderful things we need to work on with mental health. But we need to come together and trust each other to at least begin to try some new things to stop access to the automatic. Then I will help you drag your deer.
I want to piggyback off your comments about communication with the students and stuff. When I went to school, I can tell you firsthand, some students are shining lights, but when you get kids in a group and that group hates another kid like me, they will viciously attack that person. And yes, it's gotten worse with social media and everything. I've had a few teachers that were great in school that supported me, but I never really saw a guidance counselor except to do my schedule. It would have been great to go through school and know that I had a counselor or somebody to go to. I grew up, both my parents worked 3 jobs. Me and my brother were both raised on violent video games, violent movies. We're not violent people at all. Yes, every time I hear this debate come up, they say violence in video games and everything. Yes, it's kind of worse. But we're not talking with these kids. We're saying, oh, we're babying them and stuff. Well, are we really babying them? We're not really listening to them, and we're not giving them the outlet to actually express themselves truly, and not to take out their issues violently. They need someone to actually sit there and listen to them and pay attention to them. You don't need to be there and baby them. You just need to be there and just support them, and put your values on them and everything. Share your values and everything. How we all grew up, and tonight's a great example of both sides finally sitting down and actually talking this through politely and everything. That's how this country should get back together, is that all the sides need to come together, put their differences aside, and actually listen to each other. And I can tell you right now, by seeing it, that both sides are benefiting from it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Probably a couple more. Can I just ask if someone in this room could tell me why one person should value the life of another person?
That's what God wants us to do.
Okay, thank you. How is that ever communicated? How are we communicating that to? That's the first I've heard that said in this room.
I know. It's supposed to be through family, I guess, and through church, through our pastors. So,
who else believes that? Who else believes that that's why one person should care about someone else? About a third of the group.
Here's half the prop right there. You just proved it.
If you don't have a basis for that, you're going to get nowhere with this.
Amen.
Can you raise your hand if you have a basis for caring about the other and having a deep care for them, and it's not based on that? It's not based on. Please articulate. Please tell me where it is. It's a good. I think it's a really good place to start. Why do we value one another? I think I used to be more in that camp. I found deep value in other places. Wow. Yes. Go ahead. Sorry.
I
don't normally voice this opinion, but I do the right thing because it's the right thing to do daily. I don't have to necessarily feel that there is something or someone looking down on me to do what I need to do. And I feel that if more people were sincerely just caring, like this has been wonderful tonight. Everyone has been respectful, everyone has been caring. And that's what it means. It doesn't have to necessarily be one religion versus another, one party versus another. It's you do the right thing because it's the right thing. And that means talking to your kids and telling them how you feel. That means talking to my students and telling them to be kind to one another. And that's important, and that's where it starts. And it doesn't have to be anything else but that. That you care for each other. I care for every single person in this room. I don't know you all. But I want you to have good lives. I want you to have safe lives. My daughter came home today terrified from school. And it was a lack of communication that terrified her. She was in the middle school. She came home and said she wasn't allowed to talk about what was happening, that she felt she was going, and this was a rumor, I told her, that they were telling each other that if they spoke about anything, they were going to get suspended. I said, that's crazy. I said, that's crazy. She said, but that's what they were all saying. We weren't allowed to talk. I said, that's craziness. If you need to talk to an adult, you go talk to an adult. We're talking. That's a start. And I'll leave it there.
Hi, I'm Ryan Finn. I'm the high school principal at Lowville. As you all know, we've had an issue the past couple of days we've been dealing with. I've heard different people. I saw a gentleman back here hold up a cell phone as part of the problem. A lot of misinformation gets out, and rumors, misinformation grows. And when we're dealing with things at school, it's very tough for us to have to stop and to temper those rumors and misinformation. It detracts from what we're doing and who we're working with. And I want you families to know that we were not misleading, we were not withholding from you. Okay, the information that our superintendent has shared, you're here tonight, you got a second message. The information as we learned it over break. Okay, we learned about a comment that was made 3 to 4 weeks ago. I've heard the biggest thing is about communication. And at our school, our kids, I'm partial to our kids, and I believe other school districts are the same, but our kids stepped up. Without our students reaching out to their parents, to their friends, we would not have known what was said 3 to 4 weeks ago. We took that very serious. Even though kids were on break, people were away, we took that serious and we acted what I feel was appropriate for the information, for the amount of information we had during break, at the end of break. Okay, yesterday it came in and it all, again, rumors, misinformation, stuff that's on Facebook, that's on Snapchat, that's wherever. It's misinformation. And when we as parents are misinformed or are hearing things that you have a question of, I think when we're sharing that information with our kids, it causes them to be hypersensitive. They're hypersensitive because of what happened on Valentine's Day in Florida. They're and that's natural. That's not just here. That's everywhere. Okay, to see Gabby stand up here and cry about how she feels, that pains me. Communication. Do we provide opportunities for our kids to talk? We do. We have a lot of resources. I heard the gentleman back here talk about sources of strength. Our biggest thing that we have going at Lowville Academy is engaging our kids. first mentioned, do we get them all? We don't. But we try to provide as many opportunities, sources of strength, Friends of Rachel's Club, athletic leadership, drama club, all those different things to try to engage kids. Do we listen to kids? We do. We have a support system in school that we meet on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, to talk about kids, talk about mental illness and 48%, and depending on the time, we talk about those kids and we put measures in place. We provide counselors. Ed Steckley, we have a new Ed Steckley who's part of that support team. We have psychologists that are there that we are tagging these people up. Their guidance counselors, they don't see them just one time through their schedule and they don't see them again until the next year. They're meeting with them on a regular basis. Could I have done a better job in offering kids the opportunity to talk to one another, to share what they have? Probably did, but as I was going through this, I didn't have the time. We didn't have, because we were still working with the families that were involved. We were working with the village police, because we don't want to provide misinformation to you folks. We don't want to provide misinformation to our staff. We don't want to provide misinformation or information that is going to be wrong and to scare kids. I met with our kids today at the end of the day at 2:55. I met with our faculty this morning at 2:55. I don't know if I rest assured Gabby, but I can tell you that if we felt that our kids were in danger, and the measures that we put in place before kids returned to school on Monday, we felt they were not safe, we would not have opened. We wouldn't have opened today. We won't open on Friday, if that were the case. Misinformation about what it was, it's not about what's going on Friday. Okay, we want this person, and we talk about, we want this person that made this comment, that made this potential threat, to get help before he gets to that point, that flash point with this. That's our goal. That's our goals as educators. That's our goals as parents. That's our goals as kids. And again, our kids at Lowville, they're wonderful. And I told them that today. They were the reason why we were involved. We were involved from day one, and we acted from day one. But we had to have accurate information before we could share it with you. So, sorry for what you feel may have been delayed. That was not our intention. We wanted to get that to you as soon as possible, but we wanted to be accurate.
Is there something that could be worked on in the future so there is no delay? I know myself, okay, one of my kids is missing for 10 minutes and I panic. Okay, it's not something that I like to do. It's the mother in me. My kid is not here. I need my kid. You know what I mean? And as a mom, I don't go to your school, or my kids don't go to your school, but I'm looking for information on how parents like us can, not go with these rumors. It's very hard to see all this stuff on Facebook and just waiting.
It is very hard.
Waiting.
And that's the hard part. Like I said, there was something that was out on Facebook that I guess from what I understand, received 300 replies, responses, whatever it was. So that's tough for us to deal with what's not accurate and what's not, when we're dealing with kids and how we're going to help them and keep our kids safe.
We can't tell kids what to post and what not to post. They're going to post it.
Right.
We can be adults and wait. We can be adults and say our fingers aren't going to type until we know what is accurate. Nobody knew what was accurate when this person posted stuff. It was all he said, she said, and we didn't know anything. Yes, as a parent, I have 3 kids in the elementary school. I was terrified. But you know what? Realistically, he said, she said. We adults were acting like kids. Adults need to wait. 24 hours, think about it before you speak with anything, really. And I think that is the key to preventing the rumors, the things that aren't, like, we don't know what's true, what's not. Wait for them. I fully trust the school, and I trust my children's teachers, because I know my children's teachers. I've sat down with my children's teachers. I know they will protect my children. Is that hard as a mom who lives half a mile from the school? Absolutely. But I know me rushing there, I know me posting all stuff on Facebook is just gonna escalate things and make it so much worse. We have to wait and we have to trust, and that's hard. That is very, very hard. But I really think that's what it boils down to, and that's all we can do.
Guys, we have to wrap up for tonight. So this is what I'll do with my families at the end of the session. I'll ask, how did we do? And give me like a sense of how we did. Is this something we want to do again? Do we meet in? Do we do this again? Come together again and continue this conversation? Maybe with same faces, maybe with additional faces, and can continue this. I think one proposal I would have is, or that we would have is identifying somebody who is clearly, someone or some people that are clearly on the other side of this issue. We present ourselves as part of a progressive group. Can the next one be moderated by people on both sides, right? And we can't have a representative for everyone, but if there's someone who is here tonight, feels strongly about their Second Amendment rights, and then we meet with them beforehand. We discuss how we're going to do this collectively.
And folks
that would
from,
be one of my
interrupting thing.
It's okay.
Folks from different perspectives approached Leah and I leading up to tonight, saying, "Can I have the floor? I have information and facts to share. Can I have the floor to share with the group?" And we made the call that at this forum, our plan was to do exactly what we did, just let everyone speak and give everyone equal airtime. Sheriff, you offered to meet with our group, right? Yeah. So maybe we could put some folks who identify themselves as leaders, have folks sit down at the table to plan the next event, and maybe it would be less of a community dialogue and more of a information sharing about facts. These are some of Leah and I's ideas. Any temperature from the room on those ideas?
You got a lot done in an hour and a half. I mean,
we
learned a lot. And I do think that with any type of information forum, you want to give people a chance to speak if they want to.
So having the opportunity to speak will always be important. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because we got a lot done. Oh, yes.
I think you can expect a bigger crowd even.
Yep. We're gonna go out, talk to our friends, our community. Yep.
Before you leave off, we didn't really address how we're going to keep the kids safe in school, so I'm going to say this. Anybody who wants to know what plans that the sheriff's office has and what we're doing in the schools, feel free to call me or feel free to email me. I will get in touch with you and let you know. I am not going to disclose what we would do as far as tactically or anything like that. Obviously, you know that, but we will definitely discuss what we can do and the resources that we can try to get a hold of to help keep everybody safe. So, okay?
Thank you. And I think the best way to get a hold of us, if you or anybody wants to be involved in creating this forum next time, or you just have ideas, 2 cents, hey, this is what we should do differently, we should get into more of a debate, or we should agree on facts, or we should have people come up and have presenters, speakers to educate about guns, about mental health, whatever the case is. Probably the best way to get a hold of us is indivisiblelowville@gmail.com. And that's all over this Facebook and
just to wrap up tonight, I didn't want to share too much of my opinion because I wanted to stay in a zone of facilitating our conversation, but my husband's out of town this week, and it really saddened me that he said to me today, and coworkers, I told Lee today that I spent more of my day meeting with coworkers who are parents talking to them about how to talk to their children and how we think about this issue than I spent doing my job, seeing my patients who need me. And then to have my husband on the phone saying to me, half joking, but I know he wasn't, "Are you gonna wear a bulletproof vest tonight?" It's not funny, and it reminds me of when I got my first job as a social worker, and my mother said to me, because my parents knew that I was going to be, 22 years old, little white girl who grew up in the sticks, working in public housing in a city. My mother didn't talk to me for 3 weeks because of my job. So it's that fear that my husband had and that fear that my parents had about being with people that are different than me that I see as the core problem. And people spoke about that tonight. And that being able to understand each other and value each other's lives, even though we're drastically different, and I might not ever understand where some of you are coming from, that is what I think community change and safety will really look like. No matter who I am and what I believe, if I walk into your home and sit down with you and look at you as a person, it doesn't matter what we believe differently if we value each other as people and we have compassion for each other. And I wasn't scared coming here tonight because I knew that we would all take care of each other. And if I can't trust that, and if I can't raise my daughter to trust that, then that's just the only way I know how to do it. And I feel so proud that we were all so respectful and that we heard each other tonight. It was an amazing thing to be a part of. And I really thank you all because I feel like a piece of me was healed tonight. I do. And I wish I could send it to those parents whose children are dead. I do. I wish I could send that little healed piece of me to them. So thank you so much.
I'm sorry, I can't leave off with you. What you just said about a bulletproof vest, about somebody feeling that way and how you feel. I can appreciate you greatly. I see your emotion, I do. I've been wearing 33 years as a police officer. I go out every night for my family and say goodbye to my wife and my daughter. That's my job. People hate us. Not you guys, but a lot of people in this country today hate police officers. Why? Because of misinformation, exactly what the teacher was saying here. And it's a shame that you, ma'am, have to feel that way up in front of us right now, that emotion. Somebody said, wear a bulletproof vest. I personally take offense to hearing that because we're the ones out there every night with no prejudice. Doesn't matter what color, what religion, what your opinion is. My fellow brothers and sisters lay their lives down every day and night for all of you. And we do it because that's our job. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Yep.